welcome to another episode of the Dragon Yawn. I'm Sifu Mike, and I'm coming to you from the mats of Tactical Kung Fu and Mixed Martial Arts located in Durham, North Carolina. And as you can tell, I am not here with Robert. Instead, I've got another guest with me who decidedly has a whole lot more hair on top of his head than Robert does. And I can make that joke because he makes fun of his haircut all the time. All right, but like I said, special guest here. This man is awesome, and I'm just super happy and lucky to have him on this show to impart more knowledge to you guys because he is super knowledgeable. Okay, this is Dr. Jerome Barber. Okay, and I'm going to let him tell you who he is because if you're anything like me, you may not know it, but he's like, you really should know it, man. Like top of the food chain kind of guy. You know, he's been described by some as a legend. And not just because they don't know who he is, but because they know who he is, all right? He's awesome, and I will let him tell you why. But first, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. So, martial arts resume. You've got a big martial arts resume, almost like it's like a phone book. And honestly, guys, if you don't know what a phone book is, that just means you're a little on the young side. So Google that mess, because before there was a Google, there was a phone book, and actually had a lot of really good practical applications, in my opinion. You could use that sucker to beat people up. You can hold open doors and stuff. I mean, it had a lot of good things. You can't do that with Google nowadays. But anyways, sorry.
Sorry. Hey, listen, I still rely on phone books. I grew up with them. I still use them.
Yeah. This is a good thing, man.
Anytime I can get a phone book, I'm happy. A lot of places. Yeah, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I got into Asian martial arts when I was 29 years old. And I went to a guy named, I had looked around Buffalo, because I was working on my doctoral dissertation, and I had really gotten away from all of the amateur boxing kind of stuff that I had done earlier as a teenager and before I started college. And so I was looking for a good school to work with, but I wanted somebody who was also a good teacher. And Don Zangi, Sifu Don, was that guy. I mean, he was an excellent teacher. I shouldn't say was, he still is because he's still alive. And his school was called Fighting Back Institute. And that's what it was all about. It's about fighting back. It was about not being a victim, about being able to take care of yourself in a critical situation, do what you had to do, and get the hell out of Dodge. And our rule was 5 seconds less, run like hell. That was our rule.
Yeah.
And I just continued that whole idea. And he had blended Tracy Kenpo with Modern Arnis. And he had both Al Tracy and Remy Prices giving him permission to do it. And Tracy had told him, Don, you're reinventing the wheel. Adriano Imperato has already done that. It's called Kaju Kembo. And Don was a bit deflated, but he was also a guy with a big ego. So
guys, Kaju Kenpo is the main martial art taught at Tactical Kung Fu. So we're kind of like cousins in a weird way. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. Human body can only move in so many ways. So you're going to have a lot of the same things, just different names.
Exactly. And then when I got my black belt from Zangi and Professor Prices, first black, I opened up a program at Erie Community College that we called the Kenpo Arnis Self-Defense Program. And we were able to put it up for credit, academic credit. So you could take 4 courses that I wrote out, and each course carried 1 credit hour toward graduation and transfer credit. So if you took my course, you got transfer credit in a physical education department, or you got eventually 4 credit hours towards your associate's degree at Erie Community.
Yeah, which is really cool. And actually, I know that's probably the first accredited martial arts program in the States, it might still be the only stick-oriented martial arts program that you can get credit for. There are a few colleges, I've tried to look this up, there are a few that have martial arts as something you can take as like an elective for credit, but there isn't any like Modern Arnis Filipino-based accredited systems that I can find. But he still did it first, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think Norwich University up in Connecticut has one for the ROTC program.
Okay.
And that was put together by a woman named Lisa McManus. And she trained under Professor Priestis as well.
Okay.
And I've heard there was a Blintellock program somewhere in New England, but I have not been able to find it. But if it is, then that would be the only Blintellock program
Right.
being taught anywhere for academic credit. So that's assuming it's up and running. But yeah, we did the first one.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why he was able to get that is not just because of his martial arts prowess, but his educational background and where he's at in academia, which is still really cool. So why exactly do we call you doctor? You mentioned you're doing a doctorate, so what do you a doctorate in?
My doctorate is Doctor of Education, and I got it in Social Foundations of Ed from the University of Buffalo. So it's a real academic doctorate.
Nice, and it's probably one of the best ones you could have for something like this and trying to spread the word of martial arts to people. Because teaching martial arts is a very different type of skill that some people I think don't have as well as they should. And so having the academic background to also just know how to teach and how to formulate a concise program from point A to point B and know where you're going, that is amazingly awesome.
My big concern was and still is that a lot of people take a martial arts program, they go through it, and they're good at what they do, but they never learned how to teach. So part of what I was doing was taking my students through and at the same time helping them to learn how to be teachers of martial arts. So I would start them off and get them going, and as I found someone who seemed to have a knack or a desire to teach, then I would assign that person a single student and say, okay, teach this person trapping hand movement. And then I would evaluate the student and how well they were able to do the trapping hand. Then I would go back and take who I was calling the tutor and evaluate the tutor and say, okay, you did this well, but they can't do such. So we need to fix that. Now, what were you showing them? How were you trying to show it to them? And we'll go back over the program that the tutor was using and refine it. Because my belief is that the more you teach, the more you learn.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about memorizing the stuff. It's about actually being able to understand it. And when you have to teach it, you have to get really into the depth of the art. You can't just go through the motions.
Right. You can't be good just one time. You gotta really, really know it.
And you've also got to adjust. As a teacher, you've got to adjust some of your lesson to meet the different ways in which people learn.
Yeah. And
some people are real good. They can watch it and they got it. Other people, they literally have to do it over and over, and then all of a sudden something clicks. Okay, now they're there. Still other people, you can just describe it to them. I want you to do this, move your foot here, put your foot there, do this, do that, and they'll just kind of walk through it, and then all of a sudden, within a few minutes to a couple of days, they can do it. It's just there are different ways to learn this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important for a person who's teaching, not just be able to demonstrate a technique, but be able to fully explain every different aspects of it, because I've had a lot of instructors who, mind you, are really good instructors, really good at what they do, but sometimes they leave out these little details that make that technique work the way it works. Like maybe I put my foot in a certain way, or I pointing my toes, or turn my hips. Little tiny details that make a huge difference, and you have to be able to articulate those and be like, hey, I just need to do this, because you may not have seen that whenever I was doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other piece is, when you're teaching, in order to get that lesson across, you have to go back and literally figure out each little step in the progression. You've got to find every little subtle piece that's in there so that you can explain it to your student, particularly the ones who are verbally oriented and who need you to explain what they're supposed to do. Some people can just watch you and they got it. I had one student we nicknamed the Sponge, because all we had to do was say, go over there and work with that guy. And then he'd come back and he could mimic that guy. I mimic every little detail, even the way someone would hold their hand. He had it.
Nice.
Now, if you asked him to explain it,
Oh yeah.
no. So I put him with a partner who I called my analyst. He could not have done what Richard did. He could not have picked up that thing from just watching and being there. But the minute you asked him to explain, he could tell, oh yeah, well he took that from such and such, that's called, or we call it this or whatever, and then that's how he would put it together in his own mind, and then he could do it. But just to watch it, no, he's lost. He's lost. He's got to work his way through it step by step by step by step.
Right.
And it's just two different ways of learning.
Right. I think one is auditory learning and visual learning.
And
yeah,
visual
is
learning.
that the
Right.
terminology?
Right.
I do know stuff. I'm only an economist, though.
Well, I'm sure there are economists who do the same thing. There are economists who can look at something and almost visualize what's going on.
Right.
And then there are other guys who got to look at the numbers, the paperwork, the flow chart to put it together.
Yeah.
So, I find that the key to teaching is to be as open and flexible as you can possibly be. There's no single way that people learn, and there's no single way that even you learn. Some things you'll learn faster by doing it. Other things you'll learn faster if somebody walks you through it step by step. And then there's the whole business about your body. How does your body move? And what are your strengths and weaknesses? I had one guy whose feet were like this all the time.
I got one of those.
All the time. And I don't care
And you know who you are.
And I don't care what we did, the feet were always like this. Always. And in fact, he used to laugh and say, yeah, I walk like a white man. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I got a friend who's an Indian. That's what he tells me. I walk like a white man. Feet are out. You can always tell a white man because he walks with his feet out. And I said, come on, that's stereotyping. He said, well, yeah, maybe, but that's how I walk. So, all right. So there were things that we had to do to take into account that his feet were always going to be slightly splayed out.
Right.
And I had a woman who, man, she was like straight on. Feet were straight on for everything. Right. To get her to can't.
Or the angle, yeah.
Wasn't very comfortable, but eventually, we got her there. But what we had to do was offset one foot. We always had to have 1 foot offset for her. So we adjusted everything that we taught her to take into account that particular footwork. an angle of foot that was built into her body naturally.
Yeah, because some people's their bodies are different. Sometimes
Right.
physically they can't do certain things, so you have to make some kind of adaptations for it. You had a quote. Oh gosh, it was something like "make the martial art yours" or something like that.
Okay, that was from Professor Priest's.
Yes.
Remy would always tell us, we'd be in seminars and camps, and he would say, "You must make it for yourself." And what he meant was, he would show us something, but he didn't want us to mimic him. He wanted us to take that idea, that behavior, and build it so that it fit our movement, it fit our bodies. And so each one of us would be just a little bit different. You know, like when we did the forms, it'd be a little bit different. Like my forms, when I do them, the tendencies, I want everything to flow very smoothly, very evenly. No fast, no slow, just very even.
That's kind of the kung fu way.
Yeah, but with power. With power. A colleague of mine, another who ran in his own school, everything for him was like hit, 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 and he counted out by the number. Well, we're doing the same form, but it looked different because mine was smoother, his was more jerky. And it doesn't mean he was wrong. It just means that the way he wanted to do it, the way his body really adapted to it, that was his way of doing it. And Professor was okay with it. You have to make it for yourself. And then he would tell us, but it's all the same. Meaning that when we look at different martial arts, we would see a lot of the same things in different systems, in different arts. And that the name was what someone wanted to call it, but the behavior was the same.
So that is actually a good segue in, as far as Filipino martial arts. The big three are Arnis, Eskrima, and Kali. So with the idea that the people watching this don't know anything, what's the difference and similarities between those three names? Why do they even have those? They are kind of Filipino in nature, right? And so.
Oh yeah. It's the 70 languages and dialects of the Philippines. So something that's called Arnis in another part of the Philippines was called Eskrima, in another part of the Philippines was called Kali, then it could have been called Caligayron, it could have been called Pananadata. So what region were you from, and what did people call their art?
So different dialects of the same language for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the overall structure is the same, but even like the count. Okay. Modern Arnis 12 count. Look at the Inosanto 12 count. They're not the same. In other words, when each strike is made, it's different between Modern Arnis and the Inosanto system. They're both 12 count systems. They both hit essentially the same areas of the body, but the number that they associate with that body hit is different. Then you've got the people who want to do cinco terros, 5 strikes. Your 5 strikes would be 2 to the head, 2 to the knees, or 2 to the head, 2 to the waist. So it didn't matter if you looked at it realistically. You could make your 5 count into 6, 2 head, 2 waist, 2 knee, and then a thrust. Now you got 7.
And you can just mix and match all the
mix and match all over the place. So when I teach people who are not in my school, what I try to do is give them stick directions. In other words, horizontal forehand to the head, horizontal backhand to the head, diagonal forehand to the shoulder, diagonal backhand to the shoulder. So now they're not concerned about what number is that. Or if they have it already in their system, they're not confusing the numbers.
Right. I think it's Dennis. No, the Inosider system. Somebody for him, he has zones for like whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, is it him? Okay, for like walking. It's a kind of a similar thing where he's just taking numbers kind of out. He's like, you're in this zone, you're in that zone.
Right. Yeah, and zone theory in Filipino martial arts is fairly prevalent. A number of people will talk about high, middle, low zone, and some others will talk about splitting left and right. So you have left high, left low, right low, left middle, right middle. And that's just, again, to orient you, the student who is learning this, to a particular part of the body. And if you're coming from another system with numbers, you don't have to think numbers anymore. You just follow the direction.
Sometimes I think there are too many numbers in martial arts.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah.
Actually, I've got an assistant instructor. He has learned to count to 10 in I think like 15 different languages. I was like, I can barely count to 10 in 2. I can barely count to 10 in 1. I got one language and I'm bad at it. English is terrible. I should know. I speak it.
But yeah, and so Kali, Arnis, doesn't matter. People can call it. Well, even Eskrima. Let's take Eskrima. Now there are 2 convenient spellings for Eskrima.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
One is EC, one is EK. Well, I mean, come on. If I go ESC, what does that mean? Well, that just means I'm from a different region than the guy who's spelling it ESK, and the ESK region was probably more Muslim than Christian.
Interesting.
The Christian region was ESC.
Interesting.
That's a generalization. I mean,
right.
It's not locked.
It's not like
hard
in
in stone.
Yeah,
but that just again goes back to this idea that different people, different languages, different dialects will utilize the same motion, but not necessarily the same word. Remy called this thing cruzada. This was cruzada.
Crossing the hands.
Yeah. Now, there are other people who would give it a different name.
Yeah.
Okay, like cruzada.
Yeah.
Oh. Let's argue about who's doing cruzada versus who's doing. Why? If you tell me to cross my hands and my stick, well, it's the same motion.
Right.
I can do it forehand, I can do it backhand. As long as I get it, I can use it.
Right.
But, back in the 90s, I was dealing with a guy via the internet, and he was talking cruzada, and I could not understand what the hell he was saying. And so I wrote him and said, well, describe this cruzada. I'm not familiar with that. Once he described it, it was like, oh, you mean cruzada.
Okay. Back before the days of spell check, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I've had that same problem, though, with just talking to somebody one-on-one. It's like I'll spend 10 minutes, we'll be talking about the same thing and not know we're talking about the same thing until one of us does it, and they're like, oh, it's that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we almost wasted 10 minutes of our lives kind of deal. So it's... I think with a lot of especially some of the higher ranking black belts, is that they just learn the difference between their martial art and another martial art, and then that's kind of why they end up picking up ranks like their Pokemon. They're just like, I've got 6 different ranks or black belts on all these different systems because they just learned what makes theirs different from the other ones, right? And that's my theory at least.
Well, when I started with Zangi, our first belt, our white belt, was Tracy Kenpo.
You told me this story. This is cool, guys.
Everything was empty hand. It was Kenpo. We go to first orange belt, which was the next belt up. It was all Modern Arnis and stick work, single stick. When we go to second orange, now it begins to mix, and sometimes you have a stick and sometimes you don't. Sometimes both of you are sticks, sometimes both of you are empty hand, or somebody has introduced a knife, and now you're cutting back and forth in your defenses based on what's most convenient to you, the defender, or you, the attacker, not what system am I doing. So we went in and out, back and forth, from second orange through first black. It was interchangeable.
Now, was it for brown or for black that you had to learn another martial art?
Oh,
I think that
yeah.
is the coolest thing ever, especially for me as a mixed martial art. I've only got like 12% of anything in my martial art. It comprises of so many different things. And so learning the other 88% of something helps put everything, my 12% into context, helps me understand it better. And so his martial art had that already built in, which I think is cool as all get out. Anyway, I'll let him talk.
Yeah, and then for second brown,
Second brown.
Zangi would send us, there were 4 instructors he worked with. He would send, when you reached second brown, you had to leave fighting back and go to some other school, one of 4 schools that he worked with, and you had to learn a different art. You had to take their introductory or mid-level training. Very often it would go introduction and mid-level because you already had some training. But you had to leave his school. There was no choice. You were not going to get a black belt if you didn't leave. And I wanted to go to an Ishinru school. And he told me no. I said, but I want to do this. I want to study with this instructor. I really want to do this. And he said, no, you're going to work with Master 10, and you're going to take Tai Chi. I was like, what? I don't want that garbage. What are you talking about? He said, well, it's that or nothing. So I go to Master 10. He, says, well, come on in, sit down, and we talk. He said, I understand you didn't want to come over here. I said, no, sir, I did not. I said, but I'm here. He said, well, young man, I'm going to show you some things, and I think you'll change your mind before you leave. Well, I found out why they called him the Ghost. That was his nickname around the city in martial arts circles. Because you sparred with him and you couldn't find the man. He's in front of you and all of a sudden he's on the side or he's behind you and you're looking at, how the hell did... Now he's supposed to be Tai Chi. This is supposed to be nice, smooth, flow. Oh, it was. But with impact. With impact. I'm telling you, Michael, I had bruised ribs. The first 3 or 4 weeks I was here, I had badly bruised ribs.
I can believe it.
Because when he went past, boom! Boom! He said, you didn't defend me very well.
It's like, how could I? You were over there. Stay in one place. Can't hit a moving target.
But the nice part was he showed me very, very dramatically how Tai Chi, Arnis, and Kenpo were all connected.
Actually reminds me of the first time I did an interview with Lama, who's the Tai Chi Chuan guy, super knowledgeable. He about hit me with a stick twice, just because he was trying to point, and I was like, oh. The photos are right here. He's like, it's over there. I'm like, oh crap.
Well,
that man always has a stick with him.
And I learned, going through the Tai Chi form, and it was the 24 short form.
Okay.
I learned very quickly that some of the things I was doing in Arnis and Kenpo were in Tai Chi. They were done slowly because they were exercise, but they were also martial applications. And some of what was in there was disguised. It was like an extra move, or two moves were put in on the same posture. They were there for disguise. They're not practical. But you remove those, and all of a sudden I'm doing Kenpo, or I'm doing Arnis. My favorite was the wild horse parts its mane.
Okay.
In Tai Chi, that's what it's called. Tai Chi.
Yeah. I know Kung Fu has a lot of names.
Yang style, wild horse parts its mane. It was Remy Priestess's diving throw. All of the same posture. Right? And you're using your hip against the other guy's hip. You're pushing your arm across his chest to kind of lean him back, and you make a throw.
I know what you're talking about. But if you train with me, you've done the same throw. I just call it the Santa Claus takedown.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
It's the same stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
And
you know Tai Chi now.
I sometimes would surprise my students, even some of my more experienced students. I would sometimes surprise them by going into a Tai Chi type of movement, and they go, "Where'd that come from?" I said, "Well, it's in there. It's built in there." And then I found out many years later, Al Tracy did Tai Chi.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he did Yang style Tai Chi. And one of his black belts, I wish I could remember the man. Oh, Ted Sumner. Ted Sumner does Tai Chi and Kenpo, and he teaches the two of them together. And when you see him, and I've seen him several times at Gathering of Eagles events, and man, he's good. He's good.
So for the people who don't know, a Gathering of Eagle event is when basically all the head honchos, top guys get together and share ideas and training and stuff, and it's really, really cool. And that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. So
Tracy and a couple other Kenpo instructors got together and decided that there were so many arguments and hassles and nonsense going on that they wanted to come together and train together and talk together and
kind of iron it out and hash it out.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys knew each other, and then there were people I know you, but you don't know, say, Tom Bowling. So I introduce you to Tom Bowling at a Gathering of Eagles.
Gotcha.
And then the two of you introduce somebody, say, because of Juan Kwando. So you would introduce Tom to some other guy, only to find out that Tom maybe already knows this guy.
Yeah.
They just haven't been together in a long time.
Yeah.
Or they train with the same instructor at different times. You know, And that kind of, and so that's what Gathering Eagles was. And Tracy ran it every 2 years, beginning in 1999, and so every other year.
And it's still going?
It's still going.
Nice.
They're going to be in Miami in August.
There you go, guys.
Yeah.
That's your backyard too, so you'll be there, right?
Nope.
No?
No, actually, I'm going to be up here with you.
You're still here? See, I rule.
I'll be up here with you.
Take that, Tracy. No, I'm just joking.
For that, but the concept, I mean, the concept is really good, because now you get a chance to meet different people that you've heard about or read about, people that you might not normally meet if you stayed pretty much in your home area. But if you go to a gathering, you'll meet these guys, because they're coming to see other people too.
Right.
And that's how you get the whole thing going.
It's a great way to learn information about the martial arts and how everything is
Yes.
connected. Because for me, it's not just understanding like names and dates and stuff like that, but really getting down to the individual movements. Because a lot of things are the same, right? And
Very much so.
That's why I enjoyed some of the historical stories that you were telling me about the origins of certain eskrima techniques, and specifically the stick and a dagger, and why they would use a long range and a short range weapon at the same time. I thought the story was super freaking cool.
Well, that came about because when the Spanish came to the Philippines, and then eventually conquered most of the Philippines and put it under their control, the Spanish were using, some of the Spanish, not all of them, but some of the Spanish were using sword and dagger. And apparently the Filipinos had not seen sword and dagger, or if they had, it was not a proficient thing for a lot of people to use. And that, of course, meant, okay, if my enemy knows how to do this, I better figure out how to defend it.
Right.
And the best way to figure out how to defend it is I have to learn how to do it.
Because you can't defend against something you don't know what it is.
So now I start practicing sword and dagger so I can defend against it the next time I see it. And that whole thing developed, and now, as you know, there are now 3 basic Arnis or Filipino martial arts types: single stick, double stick, sword and dagger. So those are your 3 major weapon systems within the Filipino martial arts. Then you can get into things like the Kampalan and a number of other blades, because most of the Filipino martial arts is blade oriented.
Yeah, well, the Philippines, they're a blade culture.
They're a blade culture, right.
They have a lot of different types of knives.
And so you've got knives, and you've got long blades, long knives, and then you have swords. I taught 2 of my students to use the Kampalan, because I just found it fascinating when I saw it being used in a couple of forms when I went out to California to what was called a Tipanan. And that was being run by a man named J. De Leon. And he had a couple of practitioners there who were working with the Kampalan.
So because I know when I first started, I didn't know what that weapon was. Can you provide a brief description for those of us watching who don't know what a Kampalan is?
32 to 36 inch blade with a forked end. It's a single edge, but you have a fork at the end of it, and that is used for gutting. Literally run it through the guy and rip it out, and you bring his innards out with him, with the blade. It's a broadsword.
Yeah.
Right? Supposedly it was the sword that Lapu-Lapu took off Magellan's head with. I don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't matter. But it is a very powerful and heavy sword. It's front weighted. So it's heavy at the end of the blade and lighter toward the handle. But it's a monster of a blade to work with. And if you're going after somebody with a Compilon and they're trying to use, say, a bola, which is nothing more than a long knife, maybe 20, 22 inches long, that Compilon is going to literally destroy the bola.
Go right through it.
Go right through it. Yeah. It'll take your arm off. You know. Two-handed. Well, how you doing, Stumpy?
Huh? That's why we're next to a healthcare equipment store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. All right.
Oh man.
But that was something I saw at the Tipanon. And the other thing I saw at Tipanon, which I really want to do more of, was an art called Lua. L-U-A.
I've never heard of Lua.
Oh, brutal. Brutal. Effective. And the weaponry is different again.
Where's it from? Is it?
It's Polynesian.
Okay.
And it came up, with the Polynesians sailing up to Hawaii and back. And the weaponry is different. It's just different. Like, I call it the ping pong paddle with teeth. Think of a ping pong paddle.
Yeah.
And then imagine around the edge of the paddle, from one side of the handle to the other, shark teeth.
So I guess you can cut and hit.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
How long was it? Was it?
It's only about this long.
Wow. And you can play ping pong too.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful, beautiful weapon. If you're thinking in terms of using the environment to create your tool.
Right.
Right?
And that would actually be like, I guess, a cutoff end of a boat paddle, right?
Yeah.
An oar, right? So
Right.
they just had the end of it to put shark teeth around it. And they're like, oh, we got a weapon.
We got a weapon.
Okay.
There's another one, I don't know the name of it, but it's about 20 inches long. It's a post with a sharp spike at the end. And then there's a lanyard on it. And that you use against somebody using a weapon. So you whack the heck out of his arm, and then you use the lanyard and wrap it around his neck, and you set the post against the base of his spine as you bend him backwards.
Ooh. So he's kind of impaling himself.
So he's impaling himself while he's being choked.
Wow, that's pretty brutal. Yeah.
And the best part was,
This is the best part.
I saw a woman using it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it takes any. It doesn't. There's a lot of things that don't take a whole lot of strength, and I always call knives like the rate equalizer, because if it's really sharp, it don't take nothing but poop. Oh, guess what? You're bleeding now. You know.
But the beauty of it is that this woman named Michelle Manu showed us the hula, right? Whole deal, beautiful, beautiful dancer, and explained all the moves, which most of us don't know. We just simply see the arms waving and we think, oh, that's so nice. Oh, that girl is so attractive. Oh, I'd love to be with her, right? They're all killing moves.
Well, I know the Filipino stuff has been like they mask it in dance, and some of the stuff is very similar to dance, but I guess the Lua would be as well. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, and when she was done, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go back to my hotel room. I'm gonna just sleep this off because that was a dream. That was a really bad nightmare. But when I came back later that afternoon and, you know, and was talking with her, I realized that I had met her master instructor, the grandmaster of the system, years before.
Hmm.
And I remember him calling me over after I did my demo, and he said, I saw what you did, young man. I saw exactly what you did. And I said, you know, excuse me, sir, but I'm not sure what you're saying. I saw what you did when you set that choke up. You were deadlier than you looked to be. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
But then I watched his demo with his partner, and I
Right.
felt badly for his partner. Because that poor man got beat up.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was the first time I had seen Lua. It's like, wow. Now imagine that you're dealing with a guy who's 250 to 300 pounds and who's quite mobile.
Yeah, that would be my Xiaosheng instructor, Jeff. He's like 300 pounds of muscle. Big scary dude. Awesome dude though. Nice guy.
And you're dealing with a guy who's very mobile, very flexible, clearly knows what he's doing. And even his short movements are powerful. He doesn't need a big wind-up. So if you were training Kaji Kenpo in Hawaii in the 60s and 70s, okay, white belt, here's your test. We're bringing in the Samoans and the Polynesians.
The big guys.
Yep. And your first belt was called grab arts, meaning chokes and bear hugs and wrist grabs and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Those were the guys that you had to defeat to get your promotion. And they were allowed to choke you out. They were not cooperating.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to defeat them. And that was Kaji Kenpo training. And you know that old line about we don't stop training until there's blood on the floor?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. It's real. It's real. And again, talking with Tom Bolin, talking with some other people who trained in Hawaii in Kenpo in the 60s and 70s, like, yeah, that's what we did. That's how we did it. You know? So, you, the student, bring the beer and the food because you're going to feed the Samoans after the training.
After they beat you up.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was part of the whole training deal. So when we talk about, in some cases, we talk about training being soft these days, there's a reason for that.
Right.
People are not lamenting soft training because they have fond memories of that training style. They're lamenting soft training because it is soft compared to what was done in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
I don't know how well you can get away with some of that stuff now.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, you know, societal changes, law, litigious society, small children. I understand all of that stuff. But that's part of where that whole ideology that training is too soft these days is coming from people who did that kind of training. But yeah, remember that was Kaji Kenpo was developed in Hawaii at the public housing settlements. Palomas,
settlements,
right.
yeah.
And that was a tough, tough neighborhood. That was not so much gangs, but fights, real fights. And so you're talking about people who needed to train not to get, so they wouldn't be hurt.
Right.
So it was a different environment, you know. Here, you know, I mean, I like your neighborhood. I don't mind walking in this neighborhood at night.
It's a pretty good location.
Yeah, I don't mind walking in this neighborhood at night. It's, you know, it's safe. Now, the settlement in Hawaii, that was not safe. That's why the art is, the Kaiju Kenpo art is the way it is. Yeah, that's why Hawaiian Kenpo is the way it is. It's a tough, tough art that was meant to keep you alive in your neighborhood. You know, it wasn't for belts and, you know, pretty uniforms. In fact, William Chow didn't even, you had to earn your white belt. You didn't get a belt when you came into school.
Right.
You had no belt. You had to earn the white one. You know, and some of them were even set up like camp, like military style, with barracks, and you slept there. You didn't go home.
That's a good amount of training, yeah.
Yeah, some parents brought you there for training because they wanted you disciplined,
Right.
and they wanted you to be safe, so they took you there and you stayed there for weeks at a time.
I think that really highlights the difference between not only just the types of training, but the quantity of training versus then and now. Because now it's like a person does 1 or 2 hours a week kind of deal, and they're not
Right.
going to progress as fast as someone back in the day who spent like 4 or 5 hours a day. It's very it's very much the same as any kind of academic stuff, where you take a class, you don't spend like an hour a week on it. You spend like 3 hours a day, and then you still got homework and stuff you do afterwards.
And
so,
research to do.
because it's getting that quantity in there in a short amount of time, because you can really absorb it, because that's all you're really focused on.
So one of the things about Gathering of Eagles and Tippanon and some of the stuff I've gone to with the older masters was that I found out a lot of things about how these arts were preserved and progressed, and they were done for survival purposes. They were not done for art. They were not done for belt ranks and certificates. They were done to keep you alive, keep your body in one piece. So again, it's different now in some respects because we don't have as many of those really awful bad neighborhoods, and people are using more weapons, guns in particular. So
Yeah,
it's hard to train your body against a gun.
yeah. There's a slight difference in range.
Yeah.
On that, and whenever they incorporate that, because a lot of martial arts it's very close. It's hand to hand. It's at least in the range of where your foot can hit your other person, or if you have a kind of a long range handheld weapon. But if you got a long range gun,
Yes.
it's like they could be way off in the distance. They can still be hit, and so in that case, just run around and hide. You know, just get behind something that won't have a bullet go through it.
And I mean, even though this is not quite martial arts, but you look at a 50 caliber rifle that you can shoot a guy 1.5 miles away, and the guy will never hear the report of the gun.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that might fall into the category of martial arts, because it takes a degree of skill to be able to do that. I mean, I think some people underestimate a person's ability, or overestimate someone's ability to shoot accurately. And it's actually not a easy thing to do. Go to a pistol range and try yourself, and you will see that hitting a little dot on a target from even 20 feet away is kind of difficult.
It's difficult.
Imagine if that thing is moving around. I mean, there's a reason why cops say freeze, okay, and they aim for here because this is a bigger target. They're aiming to take you out. They're not going for the leg because that's a small target, right? So there are reasons behind this, and if you go to a range, you can see those. You can be like, oh, this is not as easy. Oh, wait, there's a massive amount of recoil. I need to do this. I can't just do that. I certainly can't do that. So it's a
movies have messed up a lot of things. Oh my
gosh! Oh yeah. I mean, fun to watch. We were talking to us earlier, just checking the rain at the door and be like, oh yay, moving objects on the screen. It takes me out of this crazy thing, and I get to watch people in space and giant robots that transform into cars and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, movies are a great distraction, and they're also things that hinder good martial arts training, because some people start to think that they should be able to do what's done in the movies, and they don't realize all the stunt work that goes into it, all the extra little devices that are not seen by the camera or are set up.
All the editing that's done afterwards. I mean,
right.
A lot of people don't even understand, because I'm a movie buff, I know about this. Almost every fight scenes from 2000 on in TV and movies, it's actually sped up. All the action sequences are sped up because they want that preciseness. So they do things a little bit slowly. So they don't do things as fast as you actually see them, because they can speed up just a little bit. It also prevents motion blur, which is a big thing on certain cameras. Now we have a lot of newer equipment that is better, but back in the day they didn't have that. Now back in the 70s they didn't have any of that kind of technology. Some of that stuff is like, they're going full bore, like the Jackie Chan movies.
Yeah.
They didn't hold back, man. That poor guy broke every bone in his body over the course of his career.
Well, plus he insisted on doing his own stunts.
Well, I think he started as a stuntman, and so that was kind of his thing. He's like, I know how to make me look good because I've been doing this before I was an actor, kind of deal. Anyways, we're approaching an hour. This has been freaking awesome. I think we could do this all day. I still think my computer could do this all day. But this has been absolutely awesome, and I'm super happy you're here, man. And you've come on this podcast, and we tell all you great people about Dr. Jerome Barber, the 10th degree in Tracy Kenpo, and the Datu, which is now actually we'll end on this, because I've briefly been reading through the paperwork they gave me.
Yeah.
Datu
is,
according to some, I thought it was chieftain, because that's what the internet told me, but there might be a different
tradition. The traditional Datu was a war chief.
Yeah.
In the Philippines. But Remy adapted the title to mean a master of weapons. So when he first used it, his first 3 people that he made Datu were masters of weapons. They had to master 4 weapon systems within the Filipino arts.
Okay. So there you go. Dr. Jerome, master of weapons.
Well, traditional weapons, not...
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot now.
Not the gun, not the bazooka, not the tank. You know, all of which I'd like to learn, but
there's still time. Always learning, man. Always improving. That's what we do. Anyways,
if I could
guys.
Get my own tank, I'd be happy.
I know, right? No more problems with traffic. No more traffic jams. Just go right through.
Right through it.
Yeah. Boom. I'm good. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. I thought this was great. I'm going to thank you again, Dr. Jerome, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And this has been another episode of The Dragon Yawn. Be sure to tune in more, like us on Facebook, and find us on Twitter, Instagram, and definitely subscribe to this particular channel, man. We got more of this stuff to come. Interviewing high-ranking martial artists all the time who come this way, and it's been an absolute joy. So, thank you guys. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you later. So, bye.